Hello everybody, Adam Cleary from FourFourTwo here, and I sure do hope you enjoyed that title race while it lasted because, well, Kevin De Bruyne is back. Yeah, they were 2-1 down at St James's Park, which is a position you never really want to be in. De Bruyne comes off the bench, and to quote a meme I don't particularly understand, it's just over for you bitches. And that's because if this is Manchester City without Kevin De Bruyne, then this is Manchester City with Kevin De Bruyne. I'll explain. Alright, so I forget the exact number of minutes, but it's the first game of the season. Man City are away to Burnley. Kevin De Bruyne cannot continue, and off he comes. And over the weeks and months between then and now, Pep Guardiola has experimented massively with this Man City side, trying to fill that big ginger hole. That sounded awful. Now, he did loads of different things, so if you are a Man City fan and you think I'm missing some stuff or I'm oversimplifying some stuff, then yes, I am to an extent, but we've only got so much time. The easiest way of looking at it is he brought in Julian Alvarez for De Bruyne, so we could still attempt to get the whole 3-box-3 thing going from last season. And if you don't know what that is, basically someone steps out of the back four to form a sort of box-shaped 4 midfielders in the middle, and that's where you get control of games. Now, last season, this was brilliant because you had Stones and Rodri at the base of it, two players who can dribble, who can pass, who were just excellent on the ball, who you would never want to press if you could possibly help it. And then forward, you had De Bruyne, probably the best player in the Premier League, then either Silva or Gundogan, who offered a roaming goal threat. But this season, though, John Stones has been injured, and Gundogan has left, and De Bruyne has also been injured, so it's ended up looking like this, which is obviously still good enough to win you loads of games in the Premier League, but Manchester City have just not looked as just dangerous, as venomous, as unbeatable as they did last season. And the reason is because this core component of what they were doing was made up of players who weren't quite as good at it. But of course, when you've still got a defense this good and the most lethal striker in the world, it'll keep you within touching distance of the top. And the plan was obviously just to hang in there until they got De Bruyne back and then unleash themselves upon the many mortals threatening their crown. I've come off my caffeine break this week, by the way, don't know if you can tell. Sometimes they would even end up forming it with Kyle Walker moving across the way Liverpool do with Alexander-Arnold, and you can understand, can't you, the fundamental differences in how you would try and control a game of football if everything is going through John Stones or everything is going through Kyle Walker. It's a bit like the difference between conducting some sort of massive orchestra with like an experienced conductor versus like an Alsatian with a hammer tied to its paw. But then, of course, something even terribler happened, and Erling Haaland got injured. Bye-bye, there he goes. I have to get that back, actually. So now you've got to take Alvarez from here and play him up front. And all of a sudden, Pep found that he had a real problem with how he was going to form his box. So what he did was he kind of stopped trying to do it. So what they did, and this is how they'd lined up against Newcastle, was they went for a very conventional, by their standards, 4-2-3-1. So you got Jeremy Doku on the left, Foden and Bernardo Silva kind of job shared this role, and then as the pivots you had Rodri and Kovacic. And how this works is kind of weird, right? Because you can't now form the box by having a defender step out, because you've got these two here, but sometimes they still do form the box, albeit a different way, and sometimes they form the box to get control of the midfield, which is what the box is for, but sometimes they form the box purely to create space away from the box. So just to show you what I mean, this is Man City's average positions against Newcastle. It's one of those famous 2-5-3s you see all the time. Now the thing is, this is like average positions. It's not ever what it looks like in the middle of the game, but the reason it's come out in this shape is because they were doing the box, but they were swinging the box, sounds weird, from side to side. And you should be able to see the box in this graph. Like, I can't physically see this. I have to put it on afterwards. So I think I'm pointing in the right place, but there should be Foden, Doku, Kovacic, and Silva. You should be able to see that as a 4. And how that works in practice is that obviously Foden and Doku, they sort of come into the center. Bernardo Silva drops into here. Forget Rodri, he drops between the back three because they spread out. And basically, what they do is they use this to make space. Like, that's a lot more compact than we're usually used to seeing this, because they'd like to spread out. And what they do is they make this nice compact box, but do it over one side of the pitch, and in doing so, make loads of space this side for the fullback on that side, in this case Kyle Walker, to get all the way up to just do stuff. And there's the first goal. Like, look, you can see here are the 4 players. They are congesting Newcastle United's defence all over this side of the pitch. They play the one ball out to Walker, who could practically be on a sun lounger there if he wanted to be. He puts the ball in and Bernardo Silva scores. But the thing is, right, if you're Newcastle or you're any team playing against Man City and their best route to goal becomes crosses into the box, you're probably quite content with that, because Bernardo Silva's goal is amazing, but how many of them are you likely to concede in a game? So what Newcastle did, and for about 60 or 70 minutes until one particular substitution, thought this was a really good way of disrupting a box midfield, actually, was they made their midfield 3 so compact and put them really deep here. The idea being that effectively man marks these 2 players, and then as a unit, you press out together onto the rest of the midfield, cutting off all the passing lanes in the process and allowing you to effectively chase Rodri back to his own goal. And because Man City are kind of only really trying one side at a time, that meant that either Gordon or Almiron would drop back in to help out here, and if anything did get through because you're nice and compact, the defence would happily step out and take the ball off the other attackers. Case in point, Fabian Schär scything through Jeremy Doku to get Newcastle their equaliser. But the thing is, this isn't a video about how Newcastle valiantly defeated Manchester City at the weekend. It is about how Kevin De Bruyne pulled their pants all the way down. And how he did that was that City's fundamental problem was they could not really get the ball into either of these 2 players in anything resembling a particularly dangerous position. And if we just bring back that graph that shows you the average positions and we change it for after the substitution, well, you can just see he did not bother playing here because there was no space. Instead, he played there. And this is why Pep Guardiola goes on about individuals so much, because I can sit here for hours and talk to you about systems and tactics and strategies and positions and how they try to do this. What makes the difference, what turns this into actually winning football matches, is the players. And the better the players you have, the better the decisions they make, the more quality they are able to bring, the more decisive they will be, and the more likely you are to win things like quadruples. And I know people have made a big song and dance about the winning goal because it's just this beautiful, like perfectly weighted ball. It's something that's easy to understand from a perspective of what incredible technique. Only the best players in the world could do that. But it's the equalizer, genuinely, which I think is like, that is something only a player of Kevin De Bruyne's quality could do. And it's dead easy to miss, and it's dead easy to put down to bad defending, but when you break it down really slowly and you just see the small bits, I'll show you. So you can see here, Newcastle have been doing what they've been doing the entire game. City have formed their box, this time slightly differently with Rodri at the base of it, and they are positioned directly in the middle of it. Now, they're not touch tight to De Bruyne and Doku, but they are completely cutting out those passing lanes. They're not options, and Miguel Almiron has even come across from the right-hand side to stop them just doing a little bouncer off Vardiol into Doku here. The ball comes out to Rodri, and Longstaff does the correct thing. He knows he can't get a ball into De Bruyne, so he presses onto him to force him even further back. Now, if you just look at Bruno Guimaraes here, his job is to stop the diagonal pass between Longstaff and Miley. So if you just imagine here, they're sort of directly stopping this pass, you also need to cut that one out as well, but you can do that with one player. That's his job, so he's just got to be mindful of what's going on around him. And this is where it all comes together, right? Because instead of turning around and passing the ball back, Rodri attempts to dribble into the middle of Newcastle's midfield 3. They've got him. This is what you're trying to bait the teams into doing. He hasn't even fully evaded Longstaff, and he's literally about to dribble into these 2 other midfielders here. This is a great opportunity for Newcastle to win the ball back, turn it over, and go and score a third. So naturally, Miley and Bruno are drawn towards the ball. But as soon as that happens, Kevin De Bruyne just has a little quick check to see what Miguel Almiron's doing. He's still occupied with Doku, and then he just goes. Takes a little half a step to his right and then goes all the way out to his left because, and it's so marginal, there is no way Rodri can get the ball here, but he can get the ball here. And just like that, from like a really simple bit of movement and a 5-yard pass, Kevin De Bruyne has now done what Man City were not able to do for the entire preceding like 70 odd minutes. He's got the ball between Newcastle's 2 defensive lines. And when we talk about individual moments being what these players are supposed to bring to games, this isn't even a good chance. 99% of other players would either try to roll the ball out to one of the wider attackers or like curl it around Schär's body, which would literally put it straight down the middle of the goal. But Kevin De Bruyne scores. And he scores because he's a genius. He literally did an interview with a German television channel immediately after this game where he said that he deliberately tried to put it through Cher's legs because he knows, as the last defender, he's going to be trying to make his body bigger, so there's more chance of the gap being there when he hits the ball. And if he can hit it through that gap between his legs, he doesn't even have to put that much power on it because it makes it that much more difficult for the goalkeeper to react. And if you just look, frame by frame, Dubravka doesn't react until it's travelled half the distance to the goal. Because of how quickly he takes that chance, and because there's a defender in the way, he can't really telegraph that that shot's coming, and because of the precision of it, he just doesn't really have any chance of getting anywhere near it. It's like only certain players can do that, and Kevin De Bruyne is one of them. And for the winner, Newcastle had obviously learned their lesson about that gap between the midfield and the defence, so they do sit 10 yards further back. So De Bruyne doesn't try and receive the ball in what would now be a really difficult position. He just drops all the way off to where the space is, because if he's got space and he's got time, doesn't really matter how close he is to the goal, he's gonna be able to do something with it. And you don't need me to tell you what an unbelievable pass that is, do you? Like, I'm heartbroken. I'm a Newcastle fan. I did not want that to happen, but still, it was just like, oh. So, yeah, that's why Kevin De Bruyne being back for 30 minutes was terrible news for Newcastle United, but probably, in the grand scheme of things, much, much worse news for literally everybody else. Now, just really quickly, before you go, we are currently on to break the channel's record for new subscribers gained in a month. Like, the way we're going so far in January, if we keep doing that, we will break the record we set in the summer. So if you ever were considering pressing that little red button and subscribing to the channel, this would be a really, really good month to do it, because subscribing does genuinely help us grow 442, lets us do new, more fun stuff with it, and I'm very, very, very grateful when people do that. But also, I just really like breaking records, because as the cliche goes, that's what they're there for. And if you already are subscribed, then you know the drill by now. Get me on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you like, at Adam Cleary, CLERY. Forgot to spell my own name there. 442 socials in the corner of the video. The latest issue of the mag with Alex Ferguson on the cover. That's a great sell for an audience of mostly Manchester City fans. Go buy that if that's your kind of thing. And until next time, De Bruyne, Adam, 4-4, bye. Yeah, that works. Bye.